The story begins by showing Madarame Takashi, a professional gambler who finds himself in a deadly predicament after winning big against the wrong people. Having been buried alive by loan sharks, Takashi reflects on his situation with surprising calmness, questioning the logic of his debtors since killing him certainly won't get their money back. Suddenly, a mysterious holographic interface appears before his eyes, welcoming him as a dungeon master. Takashi is presented with several game-like options to create dungeons, monsters, and items, making him realize that his near-death experience has somehow transitioned into a high-stakes survival simulation. By experimenting with a diagram on the screen, Takashi accidentally triggers a physical change in his surroundings, causing a hole to blast through the ceiling. This immediate cause and effect confirms that the system is not a hallucination, and he is now officially tasked with constructing a functional dungeon. Using a 3D map feature to survey his surroundings, Takashi calculates that he is currently stuck 30 meters underground at the base of a mountain. He spots a nearby town with a medieval level of civilization, complete with horse-drawn carriages and residents, giving him a clear picture of the world outside his hole. Accepting his new reality, Takashi concludes that he has been transported to a full-blown fantasy world. Rather than being overwhelmed, his analytical gambling instincts take over as he decides to systematically test his creation powers to see exactly what a dungeon master is capable of. He dives into the item creation menu and discovers a list of rare materials ranging from simple steel to legendary orichalcum. However, his plan to immediately gear up with the strongest weapon hits a wall when he sees that an orichalcum sword costs a staggering 1 billion points, proving that he'll need to work his way up from the bottom. Takashi starts small by spawning a standard iron sword for just 10 points. He is baffled by how the system completely ignores the law of conservation of mass, but he is more than happy to play along with this broken logic as he tests the customization features for performance and blade shape. Further experimentation reveals that basic necessities like food, tea, and even toilet paper are dirt cheap, costing only a point or two. However, modern technology like cars or gasoline costs millions of points, likely because the system penalizes items that do not naturally exist in this medieval world yet. Takashi then discovers a massive loophole in the rules while looking at treasure chests and traps. While creating original objects is affordable, copying an existing item is even cheaper, allowing him to mass-produce essentials for a fraction of the cost. He considers terraforming entire forests or magma zones, but the high running costs make such a move a risky investment for now. Moving on to the Monster Create menu, he quickly learns that high-tier creatures like dragons are still way out of his budget. Instead, the system allows him to micromanage every detail of lower-tier monsters, from their basic stats like vitality and agility to specific physical traits like venomous stingers or sharpened claws. There is a clear logical balance to the stats where small creatures like mice can gain speed cheaply, but cost a fortune to make strong. Conversely, massive beasts are naturally sturdy but slow. He can even grant them advanced skills like fire breath or lightning magic, making the tactical possibilities feel endless. To top it off, he can assign combat auras that scale in power from yellow to a deep red, a feature that definitely appeals to his inner gamer. Despite the excitement of building a custom army, a small part of him still worries whether the monsters he creates will actually stay loyal or end up turning him into their first meal. To play it safe, he chooses to create an incredibly weak creature that costs only a single point. It is a tiny round ball of fur with legs as thin as wire, designed to be completely harmless so he can test the system without any risk of being attacked. During the process, the system offers him a special first-time bonus to grant the monster a Class X intelligence skill. He realizes that intelligence is usually a luxury for low-tier monsters, but exceeding level 4 would actually allow the creature to communicate. Sensing that the mysterious higher-ups who trapped him here are practically rooting for his success, he decides to follow their lead and accepts the intelligence upgrade to see just how useful a talking assistant can be. The creation process is a success, resulting in a sentient black puffball that immediately acknowledges him as its creator. Takashi decides to name the little guy Kerama, and the creature responds with polite gratitude, confirming that the high intelligence stat has made it both loyal and capable of complex interaction right out of the gate. Kerama wastes no time explaining the fundamental mechanics of being a dungeon master. Its primary duty is to protect the dungeon core while luring humans into the depths to be eliminated. This isn't just for sport, as the core absorbs the mana from their bodies and converts it into points, which are the essential currency needed to expand the dungeon's reach. The ultimate objective is even more ambitious than he expected, as reaching 100 billion points would grant him the title of the absolute ruler of this world. Although the number is staggering, Takashi is intrigued by the challenge and begins his journey by expanding his cramped surroundings into a proper room, complete with furniture and lighting. However, Kerama points out that gathering points is a high-stakes gamble. While targeting powerful humans provides a massive influx of mana, it also invites adventurers capable of destroying the dungeon core. If that core ever shatters, the dungeon will cease to exist, and Takashi's life will be forfeit along with it. Kerama breaks down the point farming efficiency, revealing that while local flora and fauna provide a measly 10 points a day, killing a single average adventurer yields a staggering 10,000 points. This massive thousand-fold increase immediately catches Takashi's attention, highlighting the brutal reality that the fastest way to reach his billion-point goal is through cold-blooded elimination. Looking for a less lethal alternative, Takashi considers capturing and imprisoning humans to harvest the mana generated by their heightened emotions. However, Kerama quickly shuts down the feasibility of this pacifist route, noting that it would take 1 million captives to hit the target, an impossible feat that would only draw massive, unwanted retaliation from the human world. The frustration mounts as Takashi tries to brainstorm a foolproof, inescapable death trap using poison gas or total lockdowns, only to learn about the rigid dungeon rules. The system explicitly forbids unbreakable designs, mandating that every dungeon must be fundamentally clearable, a revelation that leaves Takashi questioning who exactly designed such a biased set of regulations. The restrictions are even more granular than expected, forcing Takashi to connect every entrance directly to the core and maintain passage sizes that humans can actually navigate. Even the placement of keys and the difficulty of puzzles are regulated, requiring that any challenge must be solvable by at least 60% of the population, which Takashi finds absurdly generous toward the intruders. Realizing there is no room for blatant cheating, Takashi shifts his focus to the strategic placement of monsters, only to find another layer of complexity. Monsters aren't just static obstacles, they are independent beings with their own thoughts and behaviors, meaning he has to manage them as living assets rather than simple tools. The logistics of dungeon management become a full-time job as Takashi learns that he must provide food and water for his minions, or they will simply abandon their posts. Furthermore, he has to be tactically clever with his placements, as veteran adventurers can easily predict hidden traps just by observing the types of monsters inhabiting a specific floor. To solve the hunger issue, Takashi realizes he must build a self-sustaining ecosystem where weak, fast-breeding monsters serve as a constant food supply for the stronger ones. He considers using undead like skeletons or zombies to save on grocery bills since they don't eat, but Kerama is quick to shoot down that idea as a primary strategy. It turns out skeletons are essentially bottom-tier fodder with zero versatility, being easily countered by clerics, holy water, or even a simple tripwire. Even golems and puppets aren't much better, as they require an exhausting amount of time to be taught even the most basic movements, making them more of a chore than an asset. However, Takashi finds a loophole: a dungeon master can manually possess and operate a skeleton, giving it the tactical edge of a human mind. But the mood shifts when Kerama reveals a grim statistic, stating that only 30% of dungeons manage to survive their first year against the constant onslaught of adventurers. The pressure mounts as Takashi learns about Roadlock, a massive fortress city with 70,000 residents located just an hour's walk away. As a thriving trade hub, it is packed with merchants and, more importantly, a high concentration of skilled adventurers who act as guards and treasure hunters. Right on cue, a group of these seasoned adventurers traveling nearby begins to sense an unusual mana signature radiating from the mountain. A mage named Melinda picks up on the strange energy, immediately making her party suspicious of the supposedly empty terrain. Despite some members wanting to head home, the party decides to follow Melinda's intuition and investigate the base of the mountain. It doesn't take long before they stumble directly onto the dungeon entrance, meaning Takashi's peaceful setup phase has officially ended as his first real intruders have arrived. The party charges in only to find themselves staring at a wall that feels far too new to be an ancient ruin. Takashi watches their confusion through his monitor, realizing that a standard dungeon would be conquered in no time, so he decides to pivot his strategy and give them an experience they will never forget. With a smug grin, Takashi unveils his Masterstroke, transforming the dull cave into a glitzy high-end casino dungeon. The seasoned adventurers are left completely speechless as they step out of the dark tunnels and into a massive lit-up hall filled with gambling tables and strange machines instead of the monsters they expected. Word of this anomaly travels fast back to the Roadlock Adventurers Guild, where Vice Guild Master Lady Paulette struggles to process the report. The idea of a dungeon without a single trap or monster sounds like a joke, yet the magical signatures prove that this mysterious facility is very much real. Back inside, Melinda and her team cautiously explore the palace-like interior, marveling at the rows of slot machines that look more like art than threats. While searching for hidden dangers, Seal spots a treasure chest sitting right by the entrance, prompting the group to stay on high alert for any sudden ambushes. Gantz opens the chest, but instead of gold or legendary gear, he finds a pile of strange coins labeled as a grand opening gift for first-time visitors. The party realizes these tokens are the key to moving forward, especially since the massive door leading to the next floor is sealed tight. Brute force proves useless against the magically reinforced entrance, which requires specific items to fit its sun and moon-shaped slots. They discover another mechanism that asks them to whisper their desires and pay the toll, making it clear that in this dungeon, their progress depends entirely on how much they are willing to bet. The group discovers a price list revealing that the symbols needed to unlock the door are sold for a staggering amount of tokens. To ensure they are not being scammed, Treff uses her appraisal skill on a healing potion, confirming that the dungeon inventory is high quality and very real. Calculations show that the exchange rate between their silver coins and dungeon tokens is astronomical, making the cost to reach the next floor equivalent to buying a mansion. While the prices for basic supplies are absurd, they notice that higher-grade items actually offer a much better value for their money. With no other way to progress, the party begins searching the room for more tokens to fuel their journey. Kaito decides to take a risk and inserts one of their few coins into a slot machine, hoping for a miracle as the mechanical reels begin to spin. Fortune favors the bold as Kaito hits a jackpot, causing a flood of coins to spill out of the machine. Gantz realizes the dungeon true trap progress depends entirely on gambling their limited resources to multiply their wealth rather than traditional combat. Later, Gantz reports these bizarre findings to Lady Pollitt at the Adventurers Guild, describing the place as a unique, monster-free zone that focuses on entertainment. While the lack of enemies suggests low danger, the massive amount of time and money required to clear it makes it a logistical nightmare. Lady Pollitt remains skeptical and refuses to give Gantz special treatment just because he is the guild master's nephew. Recognizing the mystery at hand, she organizes an official investigation for the next morning, personally joining the team to see if this gambling den is truly as harmless as it seems. Deep within the dungeon, Takashi reviews his strategy with Kerama, admitting that while the initial bonuses caused a temporary dip in mana profits, the long-term goal is to bait high-level adventurers into his trap. He remains completely unfazed by the threat of his dungeon being conquered, already preparing to expand with new facilities to further drain the visitors' resources and spirit. The following morning, Lady Pollitt and her elite investigation team step into the casino, immediately struck by the bizarre, monster-free atmosphere. While the professional investigators try to stay focused on the mission, the sight of a grand opening bonus offering free coins proves to be an effective distraction, especially for those looking for an excuse to test their luck. Lady Pollitt's analytical mind quickly deconstructs the dungeon's predatory economy, realizing that coins can only be traded for survival items rather than hard cash. She calculates the astronomical cost required to unlock the final door, concluding that the sheer financial burden makes a traditional guild-funded raid practically impossible and strategically non-viable. To better understand the mechanics, the team decides the best way to investigate is to actually play, noticing that Takashi has already upgraded the floor with higher-stakes slot machines. Kaito observes that the potential payouts have increased alongside the risks, a clear sign that the dungeon is rapidly evolving to keep its guests hooked on the thrill of the gamble. The investigation takes a turn for the surreal when the scout, Acel, discovers a brand new wing that appeared overnight. Instead of finding lethal traps or hidden boss rooms, the group is led down a hallway featuring signs for modern amenities like public baths and toilets, further confusing their perception of what a dungeon should be. Stepping inside, the adventurers are left absolutely speechless by the level of cleanliness and luxury, which far exceeds any facility found in the outside world. The utter absurdity of finding a pristine high-end lavatory in the middle of a monster-infested mountain leaves the party questioning the true nature of the entity managing this place. The exploration deepens as the group discovers a massive public bath filled with steaming hot water, a sight so surreal and pristine that it leaves everyone in shock. While the area is completely devoid of monsters, the sheer lack of danger actually stresses Pollitt out, as she realizes reporting a luxury spa to the guildmaster will make her look absolutely insane. Despite the lingering suspicion that this could be a trap, the temptation of a hot soak is simply too strong for Melinda to ignore. Her infectious enthusiasm quickly wins over a hesitant Pollitt, and soon enough, all the women in the party are fully on board with turning this investigation into a mandatory spa break. The men are promptly relegated to guard duty outside, with Acel making it very clear that any attempt by Kaito to peek will result in immediate consequences. Once inside the changing area, Pollitt's analytical gaze falls upon a mysterious mechanical box, marking the first time they've encountered a functional vending machine in a monster-infested hole. The box explicitly asks for coins in exchange for soap, prompting the girls to use the winnings Kaito secured from the slot machines earlier. What starts as a simple curiosity quickly turns into a shopping spree as Melinda realizes the quality of the products is far beyond anything found in local markets. The situation reaches a peak of absurdity when the premium 10-coin slot drops a bottle of high-end hair oil, which Pollitt identifies as a luxury item usually reserved for the royal court. The realization that a king's ransom in cosmetics can be bought for a few dungeon coins causes a total frenzy, leaving the machine sold out and Gantz completely baffled by the dungeon's broken economy. With the men successfully kicked out and the luxury supplies in hand, the ladies finally dive into the hot springs for some much-needed relaxation. For a brief moment, the terrifying nature of the dungeon is forgotten, replaced by a scene of high-end pamperings that feels more like a royal vacation than a dangerous scout mission. While the women are busy indulging in their royal-level pampering, the men find themselves with nothing but time on their hands. Kaito and Gantz decide to head back to the slot machines to kill time, though Kaito can't help but warn Gantz that his reckless attitude toward the ladies will eventually get him into serious trouble. The wait proves worth it when the women finally emerge, looking completely refreshed and radiant. Melinda's appearance is so striking that Gantz is momentarily stunned into silence, realizing that the dungeon's luxury soaps and hair oils actually live up to the hype. The ladies are clearly on cloud nine, marveling at how a simple bath could feel so high-class. Hoping to keep the momentum going, Gantz tries his luck at the slots again, but hits a confusing roadblock. He manages to line up 3 angel symbols, yet the machine stays silent with no coins coming out. For a second, he thinks he's been scammed by a glitchy machine, feeling the sting of an apparent loss. But it turns out the dungeon was just building the suspense, as those angel symbols were actually a precursor to an absolute jackpot. The machine goes into overdrive, triggering a massive streak of consecutive wins that leaves Gantz and Melinda in total shock. It's a gambling high like no other, turning their investigation into a full-blown celebration. As the sun begins to set over the horizon, the fun has to end so the work can begin. Lady Pollitt orders everyone to exchange their hard-earned coins for prizes to wrap up the investigation. Gantz eyes the prize list, noticing that the premium hair oil costs a hefty 200 coins, and he starts weighing his options between personal upgrades or something else. In a surprisingly smooth move, Gantz decides to spend his winnings on a gift, handing the expensive hair oil over to Melinda. He plays it cool, claiming he didn't see anything he wanted for himself, but the gesture clearly hits the mark. Melinda is left blushing and grateful, marking a rare moment of genuine bonding before they move on to their next objective. Back at the dungeon's heart, Takashi reflects on the massive success of his latest scheme. It turns out that offering high-end rewards like that hair oil was a total masterstroke, as the Fever Time event generated a massive profit and left the adventurers completely hooked. Kerama is beyond impressed, praising his master for the brilliant strategy that turned a simple investigation into a psychological gold mine. Takashi realizes that even in a fantasy world, the demand for luxury and comfort is a powerful motivator that he can easily exploit. With a confident smirk, he decides to let the rumors spread naturally to attract even more traffic while he focuses on accumulating points for a massive overhaul. He officially greenlights a dungeon renovation project, signaling that his gambling empire is about to hit its next phase. However, being a dungeon master is proving to be a high-stress job, as Takashi is seen looking exhausted while buried under a mountain of paperwork. Even with a modern monitoring setup, the transition from a simple cave to a full-blown casino requires meticulous planning and constant oversight. The technical side of things is also hitting a few snags, with Kerama reporting that several monitor connections have become unstable. Although his assistant urges him to take a break, Takashi stubbornly refuses, knowing they are already behind schedule. He understands that in the world of gambling, timing is everything, and he can't afford to let the momentum slip. The pressure to renovate is actually a direct result of his own success, as the dungeon is now completely over capacity. With massive crowds creating long lines at the exchange counters and every slot machine occupied, the risk of negative reviews and inconvenience is becoming a real threat. Kerama pledges his absolute loyalty to the cause, recognizing that they need to expand quickly to keep the customers happy and the coins flowing. Meanwhile, word of the upcoming renovation reaches Gantz's party, causing a bit of a stir among the group. While Melinda tries to maintain a sense of calm, Gantz becomes fixated on the idea of a transition period, realizing that the dungeon might change or even move. The sheer unpredictability of the place only seems to fuel his obsession, proving that Takashi has successfully turned these adventurers into his most dedicated patrons. This chaotic state is what adventurers call a transition period, a rare phenomenon where a living dungeon reshuffles its entire layout and rooms. As the ground tremors intensify, Gantz and his team realize that the dungeon is not just changing its appearance, but is actively evolving its internal geography right before their eyes. The result of Takashi's massive investment is nothing short of breathtaking, as the humble entrance is transformed into a grand temple-like structure with massive stone pillars. The sheer scale of the expansion forces the group to acknowledge that this place has already reached the status of a medium-sized dungeon at an impossibly fast rate. While Gantz jokingly worries that the renovations might have ruined his favorite slot machines or the baths, the atmosphere suddenly shifts from curiosity to high alert. They quickly realize that a new layout means new dangers, and it doesn't take long for the dungeon's revamped security system to deploy its newest residents. Emerging from the shadows of the newly polished corridors, a group of skeletons appears to challenge the intruders. These undead sentinels serve as the first line of defense in the upgraded domain, proving that the expansion has significantly increased the dungeon's threat level. Wasting no time, Gantz immediately commands the party to take their battle positions as the skeletons close in. The team remains sharp and synchronized, understanding that any hesitation in an evolving dungeon could be fatal. And Gantz leads the charge with clinical precision, effortlessly slicing through the skeletal guards with his blade. He moves like a whirlwind, turning the undead into piles of bone while ensuring his party maintains their momentum through the newly reshaped halls. Melinda quickly follows suit by unleashing a Class 2 fire spell to incinerate the remaining skeletons, while Kaito efficiently handles his side of the skirmish. The party works in perfect harmony, clearing the path with ease as they venture deeper into the newly renovated facility. However, as the dust settles, Gantz notices a strange anomaly because these skeletons do not even attempt to counterattack. He stops Seal from using purification magic, deciding instead to observe the unusual passivity of these undead guardians who seem to lack any hostile intent. The situation takes a surreal turn when a skeleton politely bows to the group, leaving everyone completely speechless and confused. It becomes clear that the dungeon has not only expanded to 4 times its original size, but has also undergone a fundamental change in its biological behavior. Moving deeper, the party finds that the once hostile territory has transformed into a service-oriented hub where skeletons are busy cleaning floors and preparing a full-scale restaurant. Even the game area has been upgraded with more slots, where the undead appear to be acting as staff rather than monsters. They even discover a prize exchange counter where skeletons work behind iron bars, though Seal quickly realizes these bars are actually designed to protect the staff from rowdy adventurers. The traditional logic of a dungeon has been completely flipped, turning the monsters into protected employees. The tour of this bizarre facility ends at a massive bathhouse and sauna area that provides intense heat and steam for relaxation. The party is left baffled by these high-end amenities, realizing they have a lot of explaining to do once they report these absurd findings back to Lady Pollitt. The exploration takes an even more surreal turn as the party discovers a prize exchange box where they can trade coins for refreshments. Just around the corner, they stumble upon a fully functional inn offering 3-person rooms for a mere 50 coins. Gantz realized that this facility has evolved far beyond a simple renovation, as the dungeon now provides legitimate hospitality services for a fee. Inside the quarters, the group finds a compact but clean room equipped with bunk beds, which is a massive upgrade compared to camping in the wild. Gantz quickly calculates the strategic advantage, noting that this casino dungeon sits perfectly between the town of Roadlock and the Ironblood dungeon. By using this place as a base, they could save 4 hours of travel time, though Melinda can't help but tease him for clearly just wanting easier access to the slot machines. The party agrees that this dungeon inn is actually a steal compared to the overpriced and dangerous lodgings back in the city. Since human thieves are often more terrifying than these orderly monsters, staying here seems like the safer bet. With the living quarters inspected, they turn their attention to the final unexplored area, where a solitary skeleton sits waiting at a professional-looking table. As the group approaches, the skeleton catches them off guard by politely welcoming them and introducing itself as a dealer. This is the Blackjack table, and the fact that the undead can speak fluently sends Seal into a state of pure shock. Despite the absurdity of the situation, Gantz is intrigued and decides to try a practice round to understand the mechanics before putting any real money on the line. The skeleton dealer explains the basics of using trump cards to compete against the house, a concept that Gantz finds surprisingly similar to games played back in Roadlock. The objective is simple: get as close to 21 as possible without going over. After a trial run where he successfully hits an 18, Gantz feels confident enough to start betting his actual coins. The tension rises as the dealer takes its turn, starting with a total of 12 points. According to the house rules, the dealer is forced to draw another card because they are under 17, and they end up pulling a king. This brings the skeleton's total to 22, resulting in an immediate bust and a victory for Gantz. The polite undead dealer calmly offers its congratulations, proving that in this dungeon, the monsters are more interested in fair play than fighting. As the group wraps up their session, they realize that this dungeon is bizarrely safe and unlike anything they have ever encountered. Kaito is already sweating over how to report the existence of talking skeletons, luxury inns, and fair casinos to his superiors without sounding insane. Back at the city of Roadlock, the news hits like a bombshell, leaving the guild master in a state of absolute disbelief over the report. Meet Gillen, the guild master, who is currently nursing a massive headache because the dungeon's high-quality hair oil drops are single-handedly breaking the local economy. It turns out that the young folk are ditching their duties to hang out at the casino, and the hair oil has become such a sensation that it is fetching 10 gold coins at auctions. Rumors are spreading to neighboring towns, making the situation a ticking time bomb for the guild's operations. The market is spiraling out of control as merchants begin speculating on the oil, driving prices far beyond its actual value. To make matters worse, the dungeon's bathhouse has become the talk of the town, attracting so many locals that the guild finds it impossible to restrict entry. Gillen is stuck in a dilemma because even though the monsters are peaceful, the area is still technically a dungeon that cannot be left unregulated. Gillen is caught in a political nightmare since any attempt to close the place would invite heavy criticism from the nobility and complaints from influential merchants. Seeing his boss struggle, Kaito proposes a surprisingly pragmatic solution to manage the chaos while still enjoying the casino. He suggests that instead of a traditional conquest, the guild should simply hire adventurers to act as a security force within the dungeon itself. The plan gets even devious as Kaito suggests the guild should monopolize the hair oil sales to keep the merchants in check. By selling the product at a fixed price and using the markup to fund the security team, the guild can justify their control over the territory. Kaito even points out a legal loophole, noting that since the casino is technically a dungeon, any minor incidents occurring inside do not fall under standard kingdom law. Kaito further suggests using the rare oil as a gift to smooth things over with the nobility, ensuring their silence and cooperation. Gillen is genuinely impressed by this cunning strategic thinking, though he cannot help but roast Kaito for being a first-rate businessman but a second-rate adventurer. Meanwhile, back in the heart of the dungeon, Takashi and Kerama watch the entire conversation through their monitors, amused to see the humans effectively doing the dungeon's management work for them. Watching the monitors with relief, Takashi and Kerama observe that the dungeon's renewal is a massive success, though it has led to an unexpected development. The facility is now being used as a permanent lodging base for adventurers targeting a nearby medium-sized dungeon, causing the number of regulars to skyrocket far beyond their initial projections. However, this sudden popularity brings a massive economic dilemma as Takashi stares at the literal mountains of silver coins piling up in his treasury. He realizes that if he continues to hoard this much currency, it will trigger a massive shortage in the human world, eventually destabilizing the entire economy and devaluing the very money his dungeon depends on. To keep the money circulating without attracting the wrong type of customer through direct cash exchanges, Takashi brainstorms a more creative solution. He decides to introduce a classic crane game, a move that allows him to release the coins back into the system while maintaining the dungeon's identity as a premier entertainment hub. Meanwhile, Gillen follows through on the security plan by recruiting Guki Nagarara, a veteran former adventurer famous for his fortitude. Although Guki is initially insulted by the idea of working as a mere guard inside a dungeon, Gillen remains persistent, knowing he needs high-level muscle to maintain order in the growing casino. The dungeon's atmosphere remains incredibly vibrant and cheerful, with Melinda and her companions fully embracing the comfort of the new facilities. The place has evolved from a dangerous territory into a social sanctuary where adventurers can truly let their guard down and relax. As the crowd of visitors continues to swell, the operational side of the dungeon becomes more professional with the addition of dedicated security staff like Dan. The arrangement proves to be a win-win, as even the guards are motivated to finish their shifts quickly just so they can spend their earnings and enjoy themselves at the casino. The dungeon management even goes as far as providing fully furnished guard stations where skeletons handle all the cleaning duties. While Dan decides to head back to the city after his shift, Kaito stays behind to indulge in the slot machines, arguing that the unique games here are far superior to anything found in the outside world. One such attraction is a claw machine game that utilizes a low-level clay hand monster to grab coins for the players. For 10 silver coins per attempt, Takashi has successfully transformed a normally annoying monster into the casino's most popular high-stakes attraction. The game features a variety of colored coins that offer different bonuses, but everyone is aiming for the rare black coin that grants the entire jackpot. To keep the hype building, Takashi even plans to host a special tournament soon featuring an enlarged version of the monster to attract even more high rollers. However, the high stakes occasionally lead to friction, as seen when a frustrated adventurer accuses a skeleton dealer of cheating and attempts to attack it. Such reckless behavior is quickly frowned upon by others, as the guild has strictly forbidden causing trouble in a place that has become so vital to the local economy. Watching everything from his control room, Takashi remains unfazed since he has statistically calculated the win rates to ensure the casino always stays profitable while keeping customers happy. The strategy is working perfectly, as the presence of a dedicated security team has significantly reduced the number of monsters being destroyed by angry players. Feeling that the dungeon is now stable enough, Takashi decides it is time to execute his next major plan involving a formal collaboration with the outside world. He prepares a direct request for the Adventurers Guild, a move that is completely unprecedented for a dungeon master, but one that will surely cement his influence over the region. The unprecedented request arrives at the Adventurers Guild via a skeleton messenger, leaving Gillen completely stunned as he realizes the dungeon master is actually looking to hire human staff. Takashi is specifically scouting for a professional chef and sturdy adventurers for a live-in position, signaling that his plans for the dungeon infrastructure are expanding far beyond just gambling. While the offered salary of 300,000 kroc per day is absolutely massive, Gillen remains skeptical since the idea of a restaurant inside a monster-filled hole is naturally off-putting to most people. He knows the public perception of eating food prepared in a dungeon is poor, but the sheer amount of money involved makes the offer impossible to ignore for those in desperate need. This leads Gillen to call in a favor from Guki Garara, also known as Garara, a former high-ranking adventurer who became a chef but ended up in massive debt after assaulting a noble. Because Gillen covered his financial losses, Garara is now legally bound to take this job, despite his vocal complaints about having to work for a monster to pay back his dues. Garara arrives at the site expecting a dark and gloomy cave, but he is immediately taken aback by the high-end casino and the presence of advanced-level adventurers acting as security. The sheer scale of the operation and the relaxed atmosphere of the visitors force him to reconsider his initial assumptions, as the place feels more like a luxury resort than a dangerous lair. Still acting tough, Garara questions the skeleton messenger to see if he is speaking directly to the boss, only to be told that the creature is merely a puppet controlled from afar. It is a clear reminder of the gap in power and technology between the dungeon and the outside world, leaving the veteran adventurer feeling slightly unnerved by the mysterious nature of his new employer. As he is led toward the back, Garara prepares himself to see a filthy and primitive kitchen that he assumes would be nothing more than a garbage dump. However, his arrogance is instantly shattered the moment the doors open, as the state-of-the-art facility he witnesses is far cleaner and more advanced than any professional kitchen he has ever seen in his entire career. The veteran chef is completely floored by the sheer utility of the space, which features 10 high-end magical stoves and 4 massive ovens. This level of equipment is far beyond anything found in a standard city, leaving Garara speechless as he realizes the dungeon's resources are practically limitless. The tour continues into a massive food storage room that functions as a state-of-the-art ice chamber. Garara notes that such advanced cooling technology is usually a luxury reserved only for high nobles or the wealthiest merchants, yet here it is used to keep simple ingredients like tomatoes perfectly fresh. When the skeleton asks if the facilities are sufficient, Garara is forced to admit there is nothing lacking. The terms of his employment are surprisingly generous, granting him full creative freedom in exchange for providing quality meals at fair prices, though he is momentarily confused when the concept of a breakfast buffet is introduced. Once the skeleton explains that a buffet allows customers to eat as much as they want, Garara initially worries about the massive appetites of adventurers. However, his skepticism turns into genuine respect as he recalls his own days of hunger and fallen comrades, ultimately deciding he wants to be the one to ensure the younger generation never has to experience that same starvation. The skeleton further reveals that while the meal is priced at 1 silver coin, it remains entirely free for guests staying at the dungeon's hotel. This final detail seals the deal for Garara, who enthusiastically shakes the skeleton's hand and officially commits to running the facility's kitchen. Meanwhile, Gantz and his party are stunned after reading a flyer for the dungeon's upcoming hotel, noting that the room rates are significantly higher than the standard prices in Roadlock. Their surprise only grows when a skeleton greeter addresses Kaito by name with perfect manners, inviting the group to take an exclusive tour of the new luxury accommodations. The group is immediately floored by the high-end luxury of the accommodations, which offer everything from private rooms to personal tea-making stations. Even though the price tag is steep, the skeleton manages to justify the cost by highlighting the premium services like daily cleaning and a complimentary breakfast ticket for every guest. This is not just a simple meal either, as the skeleton introduces the concept of a buffet where guests can eat as much as they want. As the menu of bread, eggs, and fresh salads is described, Kaito's excitement reaches a breaking point the moment he hears that unlimited meat is part of the deal. The quality is guaranteed to match the dungeon's top-tier restaurant, and while non-guests can join for a flat fee of 1,000 krakas, the value is undeniable. Kaito is so overwhelmed by the prospect of a meat-filled paradise that his eyes literally turn into steaks, completely sold on the idea. Gantz finds the environment so dangerously comfortable that he begins to consider ditching Roadlock entirely to make the dungeon his new base. The only thing holding him back is the logistical nightmare of selling loot and visiting the guild, which still requires a long trek back to the city. However, a stroke of genius hits him as he realizes they do not just need a shop, they need a full-scale town. He envisions a future where the dungeon hosts its own buyback center, workshops, and merchants, ultimately leading to the radical idea of establishing an official guild branch office right there on site. Gantz decides he might need to pull some strings with his uncle to make this expansion a reality. Back in the office, Takashi receives a progress report from Kerama and the skeleton, confirming that the casino is a gold mine and the breakfast is so popular that they have already completely exhausted their supply of ingredients. Kerama delivers the good news that the dungeon has officially surpassed a daily net profit of 10,000 points. It is a rare feat for any rookie master to hit this milestone within their first 6 months, proving that Takashi's unconventional business model is paying off far faster than expected. However, Takashi is not celebrating yet, as he quickly realizes they have already tapped into nearly 80% of the local adventurer population. He calculates that at this current rate, reaching his ultimate goal would take thousands of years, leading him to the conclusion that he needs to expand his customer base by at least 50 times to avoid a total plateau. Meanwhile, at a place called the Grand Hall, word of Takashi's success reaches the ears of veteran dungeon masters who are far from impressed. They mock his pacifist approach and high entry fees, viewing his refusal to kill adventurers as a pathetic violation of traditional dungeon principles that must be addressed. Determined to maintain the status quo, a high-ranking woman among the masters loses her patience and officially orders an inquiry hearing to summon Takashi. They intend to interrogate him for his strange methods, unaware that the young master is already finding ways to blend in with the common folk. Back at the casino, a charismatic and well-dressed man named Jake makes a grand entrance, immediately becoming the center of attention. With his stylish blonde hair and expensive red jacket, he is treated like a local celebrity by the regulars, who are all eager to get on his good side. In a clever twist, it turns out that Jake is actually a humanoid puppet possessed by Takashi, allowing him to walk the casino floor undetected. This secret avatar enables Takashi to monitor his business and charm regulars like Alessandra in person, all while keeping his true identity as the dungeon master a total mystery. By interacting directly with adventurers as Jake, Takashi gathers raw information that he could never obtain from his throne. When Alessandra tries to secure a dinner date, he casually brushes her off by mentioning another woman named Minshia, sparking a wave of jealousy in the regular guest. In reality, Minshia is just another humanoid puppet under Takashi's control, created specifically to research the needs of female customers and gather data from a different perspective. While maintaining his charade at the bar, Takashi shifts his focus to the bartender, digging for deeper intel regarding the grander scale of this mysterious world. The lore of this land is far more vast than he imagined, featuring a bottomless abyss that leads to the unknown, a divine tower reaching the clouds, and a world tree the size of an entire mountain range. The conversation then shifts to the 8 great dungeons, legendary locations deemed impossible to conquer for centuries. However, whispers are spreading that 4 legendary individuals might actually have what it takes to finally clear these death traps, a feat never before accomplished in history. The first of these threats is Sigurd, a mighty swordsman famous for effortlessly bisecting a massive iron ball with a single strike. This powerhouse is currently setting his sights on the Black Dragon dungeon, proving that the world is full of monsters in human form. Then there is Yogai Rai, a phantom assassin whose true face remains a total mystery to everyone. Leaving only the decapitated heads of his targets as proof of his existence, He is now attempting to conquer the Malevolent Blade dungeon, adding another layer of danger to the global power balance. Not to be outdone, Altair Vermilion, famously known as the Witch of Ashes, represents the third major threat to the world balance. This magical prodigy from the city of Gundoranov achieved the impossible by casting Class 8 magic alone at the age of 10, and she is now focused on conquering the dungeon of the Crimson Lotus. Rounding out the 4 legendary challengers is Christiana, the first saint recognized by the Salvation Church in over a century. Possessing the miraculous power to regenerate even lost limbs, she is currently attempting to clear the dungeon of the Celestial Maiden, completing the group of elite individuals capable of reshaping the era. Back at the casino, Takashi continues his information-gathering mission through his avatar, Jake. During a conversation at the bar, he learns about the Divine Sword Mioni, a legendary weapon that no physical force can budge, as it supposedly only reacts to a true hero recognized by the gods themselves. After spending several hours listening to the latest rumors from traveling adventurers, Takashi notes that the area surrounding his dungeon is rapidly transforming into a legitimate town. This development was actually sparked by a suggestion from Kaito, and once the surveillance is done, Takashi releases his possession of the puppet to return to his much more comfortable original body. While navigating the internal facilities of the dungeon, Takashi meets with Maria, a zombie maid he created specifically for the prize development department. Although she is a moving corpse, her talent for creating popular clothes and cosmetics has turned the casino's prize pool into a massive hit among the visitors. Maria is a quiet but highly efficient worker who rarely speaks, leading Takashi to head further into the workshop to inspect their upcoming projects personally. He is greeted by Melia and Alia, his other undead creations who manage the production line, ensuring the dungeon's economy remains as lucrative as ever. Takashi is highly impressed with the production output, noting that even though Melia and Alia are emotionless undead, they follow instructions perfectly. He suggests adding color variations to the clothes and cosmetics to stay ahead of the trends before asking Maria for the latest product prototypes. Safety remains the top priority because if these items were found to be toxic, the dungeon would be labeled a public hazard and targeted for conquest. After finishing his inspection and ensuring the quality is up to standard, Takashi returns to his quarters where Kerama is waiting with a significant update. It turns out Takashi has officially survived his first full year as a dungeon master, a milestone that most newcomers never reach. To mark the occasion, Kerama reveals that he has finally gained the right to enter the dungeon society, a privilege reserved only for those who prove they can survive the initial cut. This society acts as a neutral ground where masters from all over can gather to exchange vital information or trade monsters. By installing a dedicated transfer circle, Takashi can now interact with his peers and expand his influence, finally ending his period of total isolation. Naturally, Takashi immediately thinks about the business potential, like expanding his casino empire to a second branch within this new territory. However, Kerama warns him about the financial risks, explaining that while the society allows for borrowing points, the collateral is the dungeon itself. The consequences of debt are brutal, as a defaulted dungeon is literally carved up and sold for a mere tenth of its original value. Despite the harsh terms, Takashi is ready to set up the transfer circle immediately, but Kerama quickly interrupts, reminding him that the bad news is arguably much more pressing. The pressing news Kerama mentioned turns out to be a formal summons to an inquest, as Takashi has been officially accused of dungeon mismanagement. The ones pulling the strings behind this legal trap are the Grand Eight, the absolute pinnacle of dungeon masters who govern the world's most legendary and dangerous territories. These rulers hold staggering wealth and power, with the masters of the Insect Venom, Black Dragon, and Silver Dungeons boasting point totals reaching well over 200 million. They represent an elite, ancient class that views the dungeon system as a rigid hierarchy built on lethality and absolute control. From the masters of the Dungeon of Desire and Allure to the rulers of the Crimson Lotus and Malevolent Blade, each member of this council possesses influence far beyond anything Takashi has encountered. Their collective attention is now fixed on his unconventional casino, seeing his non-lethal methods as a direct insult to their established order. Takashi is initially baffled that such titans would target him, considering his total of 4 million points is pocket change compared to their billions. However, the real issue is his efficiency. While most dungeons rely on slaughter, Takashi's casino generates a massive 10,000 points daily without a single fatality, a growth rate that makes even the top-tier silver dungeons look slow. Realizing he has become the nail that sticks out and needs to be hammered down, Takashi notes that the summons is compulsory and set for noon the very next day. Refusing to be caught off guard or made a fool of by the council, He immediately enlists Kerama's help to devise a high-stakes strategy to survive the upcoming political ambush. The sheer terror of the dungeons these masters rule is showcased by a group of overconfident adventurers who recently challenged the Black Dragon dungeon. Though they mocked the difficulty after breezing through the middle layers, their arrogance ended in a total gruesome massacre, leaving a lone, traumatized survivor to scream in agony over his fallen party. The brutal reality of the world's peak power is revealed through the Black Aura, a terrifying density of strength that marks the absolute limit of dungeon evolution. It only takes a single encounter for an entire elite party to be erased, leaving nothing but a traumatized survivor to witness the overwhelming gap in their abilities. This display of pure carnage is exactly what the Grand Eight expect from a true dungeon. To them, a dungeon is a slaughterhouse, and anything less is a disgrace to the hierarchy they have spent centuries building through blood and iron. While the survivor drowns in the regret of challenging such monsters, the stage is set for a massive political clash. Takashi isn't just fighting for his points anymore, he's fighting against a global philosophy that views his peaceful casino as a dangerous anomaly that needs to be purged. With his strategy finalized, Takashi heads out to face the inquiry hearing of the Great Eight. Despite the looming threat of the world's most powerful masters, he remains remarkably composed, stepping into the lion's den to prove that his gambling empire is here to stay. Fast forward nearly a year, and the casino dungeon has undergone a massive transformation, growing into a grand above-ground architectural marvel. The area has evolved into a legitimate economic powerhouse, with Melinda and the rest of the crew buried in the administrative work of establishing a permanent guild branch. However, being the center of a new town isn't all fun and games, as Gantz quickly discovers the soul-crushing weight of bureaucracy. Between greedy merchants trying to get a slice of the pie and endless political disputes, the team finds that managing a booming city is far more exhausting than clearing any dungeon floor. Amidst the administrative chaos, Kaito and Melinda find a brief moment of respite over tea. Kaito even attempts to secure a dinner date once their duties settle down, proving that even with the weight of a growing empire on their shoulders, their personal bond remains as strong as ever. However, Melinda's transition into a high-ranking guild official forced a difficult decision to disband their original adventuring party. This move sparks immediate friction, with Estelle feeling betrayed and abandoned, causing a heated confrontation that highlights the personal cost of their rapid success. Ever the strategist, Melinda reveals she has already negotiated a deal with the guildmaster to recruit her former teammates as the dungeon's official security force. The prospect of landing such a prestigious and popular job instantly turns the group's resentment into excitement, effectively solving their unemployment while strengthening the dungeon's defenses. Just as the team finds their new footing, Dan rushes in with urgent reports of further changes within the dungeon. It seems the peace is short-lived, as the group is forced to stay on high alert for whatever anomaly the system has cooked up next. Meanwhile, the focus shifts to the Grand Eight's majestic hall, where Takashi finally stands before the council for his inquiry. Surrounded by the most powerful entities in the world, he maintains a chillingly calm demeanor, ready to gamble his future against the masters of the old guard. The hearing begins with Sylvana, the master of the Silver Dungeon, immediately labeling Takashi as the accused and demanding his name. Unfazed by their intimidation tactics, Takashi refuses to play the role of a criminal, his sharp defiance instantly triggering the legendary masters who view his confidence as nothing more than a brat's arrogance. Takashi tries to remind the council that an inquiry is meant for investigation rather than passing judgment, but the legendary masters are far from interested in semantics. To them, the mere act of being summoned is proof of guilt. Sylvana immediately slams his business model, claiming that charging high fees instead of being a lethal death trap goes against the very core principles of being a dungeon master. The verbal assault continues as Yulin mocks Takashi for his lack of kills, while the other masters label him a pathetic disgrace. Takashi remains completely unfazed, logically arguing that the system rules never explicitly required him to be a murderer. He openly dismisses their recognition as something he never wanted or needed, further bruising the massive egos of the high-ranking council members. This blatant disrespect causes the atmosphere to turn deadly as the council's collective murderous intent manifests into a suffocating monstrous pressure. They view him as a bottom-tier rookie who needs to be taught a permanent lesson in humility. Even as they threaten to end his life right there, Takashi maintains his signature composure despite being the weakest person in the room. Takashi calmly plays the immortality card, reminding the group that as long as his dungeon core is intact, he cannot truly die. However, Maguire reveals a backup plan, stating they will simply imprison him for life instead. Takashi remains one step ahead, laughing at their threats and revealing that the body they are currently threatening is nothing more than a puppet he is controlling from a distance. The council reveals they already anticipated his trickery as Yulin explains that the handrail Takashi is leaning on is actually a specialized spirit trap. She gloats that his soul is now snared within the barrier, preventing him from ever returning to his original body. Believing they have finally won, she prepares to subject his trapped spirit to an eternity of magical torment. The other masters join in the mockery, eager to watch him suffer, but the tension breaks when Takashi starts laughing even harder. He reveals a final shocking twist that leaves the council stunned. He explains that he actually predicted their trap from the start, and as it turns out, his spirit was never possessing the puppet in the first place, leaving the Grand Eight holding an empty shell. Takashi clarifies that he is remotely operating the puppet using a specialized magic tool, ensuring his actual spirit remains safely within his main body. While Dogoskara rages at this perceived cowardice, Takashi remains completely unfazed and offers to ease the difficulty of the doors leading deeper into his dungeon if the council agrees to his conditions, even mocking the Grand Eight for trying to intimidate a rookie. Sylvana intervenes to keep Dogoskara in check, deciding to listen to the terms of the proposal. Takashi realizes he is entering a high-stakes gamble as he demands the installation of a transfer circle to link his casino directly to their respective dungeons. Despite the council's skepticism regarding the feasibility of such a connection, Takashi explains that it is entirely possible since their society itself functions as one massive dungeon. The council members remain unimpressed, citing the massive gap in their status and a fundamental lack of trust in Takashi. They argue that a formal contract is impossible to sign with someone they deem unreliable, forcing Takashi to make a move that will prove his absolute sincerity and force their hand. In a move that shocks the entire room, Takashi boldly offers to bet his very own dungeon core on the deal. The atmosphere shifts instantly as the council members realize the gravity of the situation, questioning if the rookie truly understands that he is putting his entire existence on the line. Staking the core is equivalent to staking his life, a penalty Takashi is willing to accept alongside a massive point forfeit for any breach of contract. Seeing this as a low-risk, high-reward situation where they lose nothing while Takashi faces certain death upon failure, Sylvana accepts the terms and inquires about the specific placement of the transfer array. Takashi specifies a location right next to the entrance and offers to slash the current entry fees for the deeper floors from 200,000 coins down to a mere 1,000. However, Dogoskara is not satisfied with a discount and aggressively demands that the access be made entirely free of charge. Dogoskara is visibly frustrated by the massive price drop, but Sylvana shuts him down, believing that easing the dungeon's conditions will only lead to its immediate conquest and Takashi's eventual failure. With the council officially accepting the terms, Takashi calmly suggests ending the inquiry since there is nothing left to discuss. The meeting is adjourned, and the focus shifts back to the dungeon entrance where a massive crowd of confused people has already gathered. Kaito arrives on the scene and learns from Melinda and Estelle that a mysterious new passage has suddenly appeared, prompting Gantz and Treff to head inside to investigate the anomaly. Deep within the new area, the group discovers a large chamber containing a massive and highly complex magic circle. Gantz identifies it as a transfer array, noting its incredible craftsmanship, and reveals that he has already tried to test its function just as the rest of the party catches up. Suddenly, the circle activates, and a group of high-level adventurers with overwhelming auras warps into the room, catching Gantz's team completely off guard. These newcomers are equally baffled, as they were expecting to arrive at the legendary Silver Dungeon but found themselves in an unfamiliar location instead. The confusion turns into total chaos as multiple groups begin emerging from different rooms, each believing they have entered one of the other 8 great dungeons like the Black Dragon or the Dungeon of Insect Venom. Melinda quickly realizes that Takashi has created 8 separate transfer points, effectively turning his casino into a central hub that connects all the world's most dangerous dungeons. While Kaito steps up to manage the influx of elite outsiders and the resulting administrative nightmare for the guild, 3 weeks pass under this revolutionary new system. Kerama excitedly reports that daily point gains have now surpassed 200,000, confirming that Takashi's strategy to link the great dungeons has successfully boosted his revenue 20 times over. This massive success draws in high-level adventurers from all over, turning the casino into the ultimate shortcut for the world's most dangerous raids. Takashi realizes that his establishment is quickly reaching its maximum capacity and decides that a massive expansion is mandatory to accommodate the global influx of visitors. Production demand also hits a peak, forcing Maria and the undead staff to struggle with prize replenishment. To keep the gears turning, Takashi deploys more skeleton labor and invests a staggering amount of points into a secret high-cost project, prioritizing long-term development over immediate profit. Despite the booming business, Kerama worries about the massive drain on their resources, but Takashi remains focused on the bigger picture. He knows the Grand Eight are closely monitoring his every move and prepares for the inevitable clash, predicting that a period of absolute chaos is approaching for the established order. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Silver Dungeon, where the atmosphere is thick with lethal intent and the traditional guardians remain on high alert. Deep within the most secluded chamber, Sylvana sits in cold contemplation, clearly frustrated by the rising influence of the newcomer who has completely disrupted the status quo of the dungeon world. She admits to her adjutant, Klimt, that she attempted to replicate Takashi's unique portal system, but failed because she could not meet the complex mechanical requirements. While Klimt tries to reassure her that her orthodox power is superior, it is clear that Takashi's ingenuity has the top-tier dungeon masters feeling genuinely rattled. Sylvana explains the harsh reality that while a dungeon can expand, it can never shrink, making any shift to Takashi's unorthodox methods a massive financial gamble. For a top-tier master like her, the risk of bankruptcy from high maintenance costs far outweighs the curiosity of trying something new and suspicious. Klimt notes that Takashi has a unique advantage because only newcomers can truly mimic his style, as veteran masters are already locked into their vast, rigid structures. By the time most masters are even allowed to join the society after a year of operation, they have already invested too much into the traditional way to ever turn back. Despite her skepticism, the fact that Takashi's dungeon income has already doubled is a bitter pill for Sylvana to swallow. It is this undeniable efficiency that truly irritates her, proving that the newcomer is successfully disrupting centuries of established dungeon management through his own singular efforts. The situation escalates as Klimt reveals a stack of proposals from other masters eager to link their dungeons using Takashi's transfer arrays. Even Takashi himself has sent a letter, appearing to be at his wit's end due to the overwhelming number of inquiries from those wanting to join his network. However, Takashi's letter is actually a strategic move, suggesting that the Grand Eight take charge by forming a management committee to establish formal laws and penalties for dungeon contracts. Sylvana is forced to admit that this is a surprisingly sensible proposal that could bring order to the brewing chaos of the industry. She realizes that ignoring the trend is no longer a viable strategy, especially with high-ranking masters like Londimio and Gargantua waiting in the wings. If the Grand Eight does not regulate these massive new point flows, these rising powers could easily shake the foundations of their long-held stronghold. Sylvana finds herself in a frustrating dilemma, admitting that while the proposal is brilliant, she loathes the fact that it originated from Takashi. She carefully weighs the massive economic benefits of the transfer arrays against the risk of letting an outsider gain too much influence. Although she briefly considers isolating or even eliminating him, she realizes that the other masters are already too hooked on the profits to support abandoning the network. A devious strategy begins to take shape as Sylvana spots a loophole that allows her to weaponize the very laws Takashi suggested. She plans to use the legal framework to suppress his growth while ensuring the council continues to reap the rewards of his innovation. Mocking his apparent naivety, she immediately commands Klimt to summon the Grand Eight for an emergency General Assembly to push through a restrictive new regulation. This power move is rooted in the Dungeon's 6 laws, the fundamental pillars that govern their entire society. These absolute mandates require every master to maintain a conquerable dungeon and strictly follow the established code of conduct. It is a rigid system designed to ensure that the hierarchy remains unchallenged and the flow of points stays predictable. The key lies in the 4th article, which grants only the top 10 ranked masters the exclusive right to propose new rules, provided they secure a majority vote. By ensuring any new addition is framed as fair and consistent with past traditions, Sylvana prepares a legal trap that is almost impossible to escape. The sudden summons brings the most powerful figures in the world to the Society Council Hall, creating an atmosphere of heavy suspicion. High-ranking masters like the traditionalist Dogoskara and the sadistic Yulin gather in the chamber, each wondering why the head of the Grand Eight has called such an abrupt meeting. Megwire observes the room with analytical precision, noting that the complete lack of prior information has left even the council members on edge. He begins to suspect that Sylvana's true objective isn't just to put a newcomer like Takashi in his place, but a calculated maneuver to tighten her control over the entire group by altering the very foundation of their laws. Sylvana finally enters the hall and wastes no time, immediately revealing the meeting's true agenda, a complete overhaul of the laws regarding dungeon connections. She presents a meticulously prepared draft, framing this legal ambush as a necessary modernization of their ancient traditions. The proposed laws seem practical at first, mandating teleportation circles and easy access for adventurers to ensure efficiency. However, the real sting lies in the fourth article, which dictates that lower-ranked dungeons must pay a recurring fee to higher-ranked ones, with the exact amount to be determined by a review committee. To make the trap inescapable, the rules state that dissolving a connection requires mutual consent from both parties. Any master attempting to break a link unilaterally would be slapped with a massive penalty fee, again decided by the review committee, which conveniently consists only of the top 8 masters. The council members quickly catch on to the brilliance of this legal cage, realizing that Articles 1 through 3 are just a distraction. By controlling the review committee, the Grand Eight can now exert absolute financial pressure on anyone they choose, effectively turning their authority into a tool for total economic domination. The group immediately targets Takashi, calculating that his dungeon's daily income of 250,000 points won't be enough to cover the exorbitant fees they plan to extort. By demanding a combined 320,000 points a day, they aim to drain his reserves within months, and they are even prepared to set a staggering 100 million point penalty if he tries to back out. Back at the Silver Dungeon, Klimt praises Sylvana for the unanimous adoption of these predatory laws and the successful assembly. Yet, despite the plan working perfectly on paper, Sylvana feels a growing sense of unease because Takashi is paying the massive fees with total obedience and no signs of struggle, making her wonder if they have underestimated the gambler's true resources. Kerama is sweating bullets as the Grand Eight's extortionate bill arrives, totaling 320,000 points. Takashi, ever the cool-headed gambler, pays up immediately but realizes that at this rate, his reserves will vanish within 6 months. To counter this economic siege, he decides it is time to implement a Las Vegas-style main attraction to exponentially increase his customer base and cash flow. The new strategy manifests as the Battle Champion Tournament, a bare-knuckle boxing event that quickly catches the attention of local adventurers. Heavy hitters like Maison, a legendary vanguard known for his insane stamina and undefeated record in brawls, are already signing up to prove their worth in the ring. This martial arts spectacle is hosted directly by the dungeon with a straightforward set of rules: one-on-one combat using nothing but fists. The promise of massive prizes and the prestigious title of the first champion creates a buzz that spreads like wildfire through the region, drawing in fighters and spectators alike. Melinda and Kaito are surprised by the dungeon master's unusual priorities, noting his focus on player safety by securing priests for medical treatment. Even more shocking is Takashi's decision to let the guild handle the underground betting for free, a move that seems overly generous but successfully draws in a much more intense and serious crowd. Gantz remains deeply skeptical, unable to wrap his head around why a dungeon master would go to such lengths to protect lives and share profits. He suspects there is a darker motive hidden behind this facade of hospitality, questioning what Takashi is truly calculating behind the scenes to justify such a risky business model. Despite the lingering suspicions, the tournament kicks off to a roaring, bloodthirsty crowd that fills the arena to capacity. The atmosphere becomes a pressure cooker of raw emotion where spectators bet their entire livelihoods on a single punch, perfectly playing into Takashi's plan to turn the dungeon into an addictive and highly lucrative financial vortex. Inside his private quarters, Takashi engages in a strategic game of chess against Kerama, who has surprisingly evolved to surpass his creator in tactical skill. Even though the AI suggests a resignation due to an overwhelmingly unfavorable board, Takashi remains completely unfazed, maintaining that a hidden path to victory always exists for those willing to look deeper. This calm demeanor masks a high-stakes gamble where Takashi is prepared to go all in against the established powers of the world. While he makes his move, the influential members of the Grand Eight begin to feel a chilling shift in the atmosphere, with Sylvana starting to realize that the newcomer is far more dangerous than she initially perceived. The reality of this threat hits home as Dogoskara appears before the council in a state of total desperation, pathetically begging Sylvana and Meguiar for monster reinforcements. His once impenetrable militant dungeon is on the verge of being completely conquered, a humiliation that was unthinkable until Takashi's arrival. Dogoskara is losing his mind as adventurers flood his domain with terrifying speed, bypassing his defenses before they can even react. He realizes too late that his impending ruin is a direct result of Takashi's influence, cursing the man who has turned the dangerous life of an adventurer into a highly efficient and profitable routine. The root of this crisis dates back 5 months when the 8 great dungeons were first linked to the casino dungeon. While the connection initially seemed like a goldmine for the council, it carried a hidden poison that began to erode the very foundations of their power and control over the region. The integration has backfired spectacularly because the constant influx of motivated adventurers prevents the dungeons from ever resetting their traps or replenishing their forces. Sylvana is forced to admit she severely underestimated Takashi's long-term vision, watching as her peers fall victim to a system that has turned their lethal dungeons into mere stepping stones for his financial empire. Dogoskara is in a total meltdown as he realizes Takashi is literally selling the exact gear needed to dismantle his specific defenses in the casino prize shop. His elite dragon riders are being slaughtered effortlessly, and the council can only watch in silence as his domain crumbles in real time. Desperation kicks in as Yulin offers her charm-based monsters to assist, but Dogoskara knows they are completely incompatible with his dungeon's environment. He turns to Sylvana instead, practically begging for her Silver Knight Legion or even Megwire's poison assassins to stop the relentless bleeding of his forces. The situation becomes even more pathetic when Yulin actually bows down to plead for Dogoskara's survival, leaving the other council members like Judah and Kane completely stunned by the sheer humiliation. It is a rare sight to see the pride of the Great Eight shattered so thoroughly by a newcomer. However, Sylvana remains cold and calculated, flatly refusing to lend her monsters because she believes they would still fail against the current tide of motivated adventurers. Before the argument can even continue, Dogoskara's physical form begins to flicker and fade as the system takes control. It is a forced return, triggered because an adventurer has successfully reached the deepest level of his dungeon. To survive and sever the link, Dogoskara is forced to pay a massive penalty in points directly to Takashi, essentially being robbed of his resources just to stay alive. Megwire finally loses his composure, realizing that they are falling into a perfect trap where their own failures fund Takashi's expansion. He points out the bitter reality that if a few more of them fall, Takashi's financial deficit will vanish, turning his casino dungeon into an unstoppable and permanent empire. To cover the crippling penalty points, Megwire makes the desperate call to liquidate all society assets and put their remaining monsters up for sale. He even takes the extreme step of halting the placement of treasure chests, despite knowing that removing the primary incentive for adventurers is a move of pure desperation. The consequences are immediate and fatal, as a dungeon without rewards is deemed worthless by the adventuring community. Without a steady stream of explorers, the dungeon stops accumulating mana, effectively sentencing the entire ecosystem to ruin and forcing the veteran masters to realize they are being pushed off the playing board entirely. Meanwhile, deep within the Black Dragon dungeon, Dogoskara is left physically and mentally broken after a catastrophic encounter. He had deployed a massive defensive force of 3 fire dragons and 30 dragon riders, a legion that should have easily crushed any standard party, only to watch them get dismantled by a single man. This unstoppable force was the legendary hero Sigurd, who bypassed every defense with terrifying ease. In a display of raw monstrous power, he decapitated Dogoskara's strongest dragon with a single swing, proving that the dungeon's traditional lethality is no match for a true master. Dogoskara is haunted by the sight of Sigurd's golden battle aura, a divine level of strength that far exceeds his own peak abilities. His spiral into despair is interrupted by a subordinate delivering an urgent letter from Yulin, indicating that the panic among the Grand Eight has reached a breaking point. The contents of the message send Dogoskara into a blind, destructive rage as he realizes they are practically being forced to surrender to Takashi's influence. Unable to cope with the reality that his status is evaporating, he lashes out at his subordinates, realizing too late that his reign is ending not with a fight, but with a total financial and strategic collapse. Dogoskara finally snaps, venting his explosive rage on his loyal subordinate before deciding on a desperate, all-or-nothing gamble. He demands total obedience for one final suicidal mission, proving that a cornered dragon is at its most dangerous when he has nothing left to lose. His singular focus is now the total elimination of Takashi, even if it costs him his own life. Meanwhile, back at the casino, Takashi is facing his own grim reality as his point reserves are projected to hit 0 in just 20 days, leaving him with a very narrow window to survive this economic war before his entire operation goes bankrupt. To accelerate his counteroffensive, Takashi stocks the prize shop with legendary tier equipment specifically designed to bypass the unique defenses of the Grand Eight's dungeons. He is essentially arming a private army of adventurers to dismantle his rivals' territories from the inside out, fully aware that any sign of hesitation or a plea for peace would be interpreted as a sign of fatal weakness. The tension shifts when a skeleton messenger delivers a surprising letter from Megwire, offering to pay all penalties and dissolve the dungeon link that was bleeding their resources dry. While Kerama sees this as a miraculous salvation, Takashi remains highly skeptical of the catch, which requires his personal attendance at the council hall for the official payment meeting. As the political gears turn, The scene shifts to the once opulent club dragon's nest, which has been reduced to a hollow shell stripped of its former glory. Every luxury and bottle of fine wine has been marked for confiscation, leaving Dogoskara standing alone amidst the ruins of his crumbling empire. In a final twisted act of defiance, Dogoskara prepares a forbidden artifact known as the Stagnation Spike. This sinister weapon is designed to permanently paralyze its victim, and he plans to use it to trap Takashi in a state of living death, ensuring the casino dungeon collapses the moment its master is incapacitated and unable to manage the system. The massive financial stakes are coming into focus as the total payout, involving high-ranking masters like Enmi and Soju, reaches a staggering 300 million points. Dogoskara realizes that Megwire's scheme to dissolve the dungeon link is the perfect bait to lure the cautious Takashi into a face-to-face meeting at the council hall. While he regrets not being able to witness Takashi's final moments personally, his train of thought is interrupted by the sudden appearance of Yulin. Stripped of her usual glamorous facade, Yulin is a mess of desperation as she begs Dogoskara for protection. It turns out her own dungeon is also under siege, with her elite celestial maidens being slaughtered by invading adventurers. However, instead of offering comfort, Dogoskara looks down on her with nothing but cold-blooded contempt, labeling her a complete liability. The truth of their relationship surfaces as a mere tool of manipulation, with Dogoskara having only kept Yulin around because she was easy to control. Now that his empire is crumbling, he has no use for her and bluntly orders her to get lost. The rejection hits Yulin hard, leaving her spiraling as she realizes she is being discarded like trash. In a frantic bid to stay by his side, Yulin offers to surrender all her remaining monsters and points just to avoid being abandoned. This desperate plea only serves to wound Dogoskara's pride even further. He refuses to be a man who survives on the pity of a woman and violently demands that she vanish from his sight immediately. When Yulin refuses to let go and continues her pleading, Dogoskara finally snaps and delivers a brutal physical strike to her face. With his patience completely depleted, he makes it crystal clear that their association is over and he never wants to see her face again. Leaving the broken woman behind in the hallway, Dogoskara feels a flicker of self-disgust for resorting to violence against someone so much weaker, yet he justifies it as a necessary evil to sever their ties. As he stalks past the remains of his club, Dragon's End, he encounters his associates who are visibly shaken by his dark and volatile state of mind. Instead of taking responsibility for the mess, Dogoskara simply tosses the remains of his club to his associates, mocking them for failing to protect Yulin before walking away for good. He makes it clear that he is done with the organization, leaving his former subordinates to clean up the wreckage of his shattered pride. Seeing that their leader has hit rock bottom, the remaining members of Dragon's End rush to Yulin's side. They realize that Dogoskara is beyond saving and propose a desperate exit strategy by severing their ties with him immediately. They even reveal they have been secretly negotiating with Takashi to ensure they will not have to pay the massive penalty points usually required for a unilateral split. This cold reality check sends Yulin into a state of total shock. While the associates try to convince her that she has been abandoned by a man who no longer cares, her mind twists the situation into a heroic sacrifice. She becomes convinced that Dogoskara's violence was actually a noble act to distance them from his own impending downfall. Refusing to accept anything other than her own delusion, Yulin suffers a complete mental breakdown. She violently rejects the help of her comrades, screaming that Dogoskara still needs her and that she is the only one who can truly be by his side. With a final desperate cry, she flees from the only people trying to save her. The focus shifts back to the Society Grand Hall, where a solitary Dogoskara is seen brooding inside the third tower. Despite the chaos he has caused, he still maintains a position of power, sitting alone on a throne as he contemplates his next move in the wake of his defeat. The ranking board confirms the current hierarchy of the Great Dungeons, showing that positions are strictly determined by income and expenditure. Even after his recent failures, Dogoskara remains ranked third globally, right behind Sylvana and Megwire. His name is highlighted in red, indicating to the entire society that he is still active and present within the towers. Dogoskara is no longer just brooding, he is actively preparing for a bloody comeback by arming himself with his ultimate weapon, the dragon-severing sword Gilgerin. Having spent years strengthening this blade, he is now obsessed with a singular goal of driving it through Madarame's skull. To ensure his success, he prepares a wedge of stagnation and several high-tier teleportation scrolls, confident that his plan to reclaim his honor is foolproof. The target is the Grand Hall, which is protected by a nearly invincible Class 8 barrier that restricts access to everyone except the Grand 8. However, Dogoskara knows a critical loophole involving expensive teleportation spell scrolls that allow the user to summon monsters directly past the magical shield. Despite the massive cost, he prepares 3 scrolls to bring in his most powerful forces for a coordinated internal strike. In the middle of his preparations, Judah unexpectedly arrives at the tower to meet with the disgraced master. While Dogoskara continues to mock Madarame as a mere insect, he is surprised to find that the rumors of Judah and Cain surrendering are false. Instead of submitting to the newcomer, Judah reveals that he has been busy securing a rare item that changes the entire tactical landscape. Judah presents a specialized spell scroll designed specifically to shatter the Class 8 barrier of the Grand Hall, a feat that requires magic of the highest order. This item is worth at least 10 million points, representing a massive portion of Judah's personal savings. The realization that Judah is willing to go to such financial extremes confirms that the alliance against Madarame is far more serious than Dogoskara initially thought. When questioned about his motives, Judah reveals that he is moving past the emotional chaos caused by Yulin, viewing her feelings as a weakness he can no longer afford. He is fully committed to the coup, having already stationed an army of 50 monsters outside the hall. The plan is simple and brutal the moment the barrier falls. His forces will storm the building and eliminate everyone in their path. The only remaining uncertainty is whether Madarame will actually show up to be executed. To force his hand, Judah has rigged the situation by demanding that Maguire pay a penalty fee in person, creating a scenario Madarame cannot ignore. With Cain already positioned at the transfer plaza to act as a lookout, the trap is fully set, and the veteran masters are ready to turn the society's headquarters into a graveyard. To ensure they aren't being played by a double, Judah plans to use the global ranking board to verify Madarame's identity the moment he shows up. He also distributes whispering bracelets to maintain a constant line of communication during the ambush. While Judah wonders if the rest of the Grand Eight will interfere, Dogoskara is confident they will simply watch from the sidelines, as the removal of a nuisance like Madarame benefits everyone. Meanwhile, inside the prestigious Silver Dungeon, the chairperson Sylvana is already preparing for the scheduled payment meeting. Unlike the hot-headed conspirators, she is looking at the bigger picture, sensing that the established order of the dungeon world is on the verge of a massive seismic shift. Her loyal adjutant, Klimt, reminds her that time is running out, but Sylvana is more concerned with the masters ranked just below them. She knows that Londimio and Gargantua are waiting like vultures for the Grand Eight to stumble, making it crucial for her to gather as much intelligence as possible before the chaos begins. Klimt confirms that the high-ranking challengers haven't made a move yet, but the internal friction among the Grand Eight is reaching a boiling point. While Judah and Cain's recent silence is suspicious, Sylvana is more focused on the potential power vacuum that will occur if their alliance actually succeeds in toppling the current hierarchy. The mystery deepens when Sylvana learns that Yulin has completely isolated herself after selling off her assets, suggesting either a total breakdown in negotiations or a secret pact with Madarame. Regardless of the uncertainty, Sylvana proceeds to the Grand Hall via her exclusive teleportation gate, noting that Madarame's rank on the board has yet to fluctuate, indicating he hasn't officially arrived. Upon entering the council hall, Sylvana finds Maguire already waiting in the shadows. Though Maguire claims he has no intention of getting his hands dirty, Sylvana's sharp intuition immediately sees through the facade. She realizes that the brute Dogoskara is nothing more than a convenient tool being manipulated by Maguire to do the dirty work of the coup. Klimt notes that without any accumulated points, Madarame is theoretically unable to pull off the same strategic maneuvers as before. However, the tension spikes when a report arrives from the plaza monitors, confirming that Madarame has just teleported into the vicinity. Cain is already moving to intercept him and escort him directly to the hall, leaving Sylvana to realize that the man they have been waiting for has finally arrived. Madarame strolls into the room with his usual air of calm confidence, offering a suspiciously casual apology for his lateness. He claims a minor issue with his entry permit delayed him, a trivial excuse that the council immediately recognizes as a deliberate attempt to rattle their composure. While the others see a disrespectful newcomer, Sylvana senses a calculated provocation behind his relaxed demeanor. Ignoring the cold stares, Madarame pushes to begin the transaction immediately, acting as if he holds all the cards. Klimt verifies the identification and confirms through the red status indicator that this is indeed the genuine Madarame. The formal inquiry is just about to commence when a sudden, thunderous interruption breaks the silence of the hall. A furious Dogoskara barges into the scene, brandishing his weapon and radiating pure malice. He blames Madarame's unconventional methods for putting his own dungeon on the brink of total conquest and refuses to let the meeting proceed. In a reckless display of spite, he prepares to bypass all council rules by unleashing a hidden cache of teleportation scrolls. The hall is instantly plunged into chaos as Dogoskara activates the scrolls, summoning a wave of elite guards and monsters directly into the sacred meeting space. Sylvana and Klimt are visibly shaken by this unprecedented breach of security and protocol. Amidst the flashing light of the teleportation circles, Madarame simply scoffs at their lack of foresight, seemingly expecting this level of desperation. In an instant, the Grand Hall transforms from a place of high-stakes negotiation into a literal battlefield. Giant, multi-eyed entities and mechanical golems flood the chamber, surrounding Madarame from all sides. Yet, even as the monstrous reinforcements close in, Madarame stands his ground with a sharp, predatory smile, ready to turn the council's internal chaos to his own advantage. Sylvana and Maguire are left reeling as they recognize the high-tier threats Madarame just summoned, specifically a powered machine and a darkness eye. They cannot comprehend how a newcomer could afford such expensive monsters and teleportation scrolls. Madarame nonchalantly admits he simply borrowed the points, but when Maguire points out that no sane person would lend to him without collateral, Madarame just responds with a sharp, knowing grin. The twist comes fast as Madarame reveals that Maguire himself is the collateral. By spreading a calculated rumor that Maguire is set to pay him 300 million points, Madarame successfully secured a massive loan from the 9th-ranked Londemio and 10th-ranked Gargantua. Maguire is paralyzed by the realization that his own reputation and status within the council were used as the ultimate bargaining chip to fund his opponent's army. Sylvana immediately sees the bigger picture, realizing that the lower-ranked masters are finally staging a coup against the Grand Eight's long-standing regime using Madarame as their spearhead. However, the situation turns even more volatile when a desperate Dogoskara decides to literally shatter the Grand Hall's protective barrier. Refusing to accept this humiliation, he ignores all protocol to bring the full weight of his external forces into the room. With the barrier destroyed, Dogoskara is no longer restricted to just the monsters he summoned through scrolls. He floods the hall with reinforcements from the outside, shifting the numerical advantage back in his favor. Now fully consumed by rage, the master of the Black Dragon Dungeon leads the charge himself, confident that his seasoned combat prowess will easily crush Madarame's newly created summons. But Dogoskara's confidence quickly turns into pure horror during the initial clash. His signature strikes, which are powerful enough to slice through solid steel, barely leave a scratch on Madarame's mechanical guardians. He realizes too late that these are not just ordinary monsters, but high-end units designed to withstand extreme physical trauma, rendering his brute force completely useless. To make matters worse, these machines operate with flawless coordination, systematically dismantling Dogoskara's chaotic assault. As the mechanical units pin him down, the Darkness Eye begins charging a devastating magical counterattack. The once arrogant veteran and his subordinates are forced into a panicked retreat, proving that Madarame's calculated preparation has completely nullified Dogoskara's raw aggression. The Darkness Eye immediately capitalizes on the chaos, unleashing a high-level roaring thunder smash that tears through the remaining reinforcements. Even Sylvana is visibly shaken, realizing that Madarame is casually wielding Class 7 magic, a level of power that should be far beyond a newcomer's reach. Refusing to accept defeat, Dogoskara launches a desperate, reckless countercharge, but his fury is met with cold mechanical efficiency. His subordinates watch in absolute terror as Madarame's mechanical guardians effortlessly intercept and overwhelm the veteran's elite monsters, proving that raw aggression is no match for superior engineering. The true depth of the situation hits home when Madarame reveals his secret: these high-end units were actually acquired from the 9th and 10th rank masters, Londemio and Gargantua. Watching from the sidelines, Sylvana finally understands the gravity of the threat, realizing that while the Grand Eight remain stagnant in their arrogance, the masters below them have been quietly sharpening their fangs to overthrow the old order. With the momentum completely shifted, Madarame drops all pretenses and flashes a cold, predatory smile. He declares that the era of the old rulers has reached its expiration date, and he is more than ready to usher in a new age where their outdated traditions no longer hold weight. To hammer the final nail into the coffin, the Darkness Eye begins manifesting multiple cores, charging an even more terrifying spell that sends shockwaves through the hall. Sylvana and Klimt can only watch in disbelief as the energy stabilizes into Class 8 lightning magic, a tier of destruction so rare it renders any form of defense completely futile. The result is the catastrophic release of Goldskir, a Supreme Thunder Emperor extermination spell that bathes the entire battlefield in a blinding, destructive light. As the massive electrical discharge vaporizes everything in its path, the sheer pressure forces even the high-ranking observers to recoil, marking the total collapse of Dogoskara's authority and the terrifying rise of a new power. But before the dust can even settle on Dogoskara's defeat, a mysterious barrier preserves what's left of his pride. It turns out Yulin has decided to step in, appearing with a chilling smile and a clear message that she won't let her former peer fall so easily. She doesn't come alone, manifesting her signature decorations in the form of top-tier celestial-type monsters that immediately fill the hall with an oppressive aura. This sudden intervention shifts the dynamic instantly, turning a one-sided execution into a high-stakes team battle. Madarame quickly identifies these entities as the celestial maidens of the Peach Paradise, realizing that the council still has some dangerous aces hidden away. Despite Dogoskara's utter confusion at her arrival, Yulin's presence confirms that the traditionalists aren't ready to surrender their throne just yet. In a bizarre twist of obsession, Yulin confesses her twisted devotion to Dogoskara, claiming she will follow him even if it leads to their total destruction. It's a moment of pure insanity that proves her loyalty is fueled by something far more dangerous than simple politics. With the alliance solidified, the killing intent in the room reaches a breaking point as the group officially marks Madarame as their sole target. They prepare for a full-scale assault, determined to erase the newcomer who dared to disrupt their long-standing order. The situation escalates further when Yulin drags Kane into the mess, demanding his cooperation to finish the job. Not one to be left behind, Kane unleashes powerful scrolls to summon massive lava giants, surrounding Madarame with a wall of molten muscle and ancient magic. The battlefield turns into a chaotic zone as the Alliance's forces clash with Madarame's mechanical guardians. Despite being outnumbered, Madarame remains eerily composed in the center of the storm, watching as his enemies throw everything they have at him to breach his defenses. Sylvana realizes this isn't just a simple skirmish when Yulin deploys her trump card, a Class 9 defense summon known as Shaltia. This celestial entity completely neutralizes Madarame's darkness magic while simultaneously providing instant healing and massive buffs to the Alliance's frontline fighters, forcing Madarame to finally show a hint of frustration. The tide seems to shift as Madarame's summons are torn apart one by one, leaving him vulnerable to a direct assault. Seizing the opening, a specialized squad of spear-wielding guards rushes in to close the distance, effectively surrounding him and cutting off any potential escape routes. Within seconds, Madarame finds himself at the mercy of multiple blades pressed against his neck. Dogoskara steps forward to gloat, admitting he'd love to hear the newcomer beg for mercy, but he decides that a quick execution is the only way to ensure this unpredictable target doesn't pull any more tricks. Even with death staring him in the face, Madarame's expression doesn't flicker, which only infuriates Dogoskara further. The veteran dungeon master promises to use a stagnation spike to permanently cripple Madarame's powers before lunging forward with a lethal strike intended to end the conflict and reclaim his authority. But in a shocking turn of events, the sound of a scream fills the room as Dogoskara's arm is cleanly severed before his blade can even touch its target. As the dragon-like master collapses in agony and confusion, even Sylvana is left speechless by the sudden invisible counterattack that has completely flipped the script in an instant. The sudden betrayal comes from Judas' own monster, which slices off Dogoskara's arm instead of finishing Madarame. As the veteran master collapses in agony, even Sylvana is paralyzed by the sight of an ally turning their blade inward. The confusion intensifies as the figure known as Judah stands calmly beside Madarame, completely ignoring his supposed comrades. The Grand Eight are left screaming for an explanation, unable to comprehend why one of their own would suddenly choose betrayal over the established order. But the mystery is solved in the most unsettling way possible when Judah literally peels off his own face, revealing a duplicate of Madarame hiding underneath. It turns out the person they thought was Judah was merely a remote-controlled puppet, a trick that leaves the high-ranking masters in a state of pure disbelief. Madarame casually drops a bombshell, explaining that the real Judah had actually approached him earlier to join his side, only to be captured instead. He points out a chilling fact: they all missed Judah's name has already vanished from the global ranking board, a clear sign that the seventh seat is already dead. As the realization of Judah's death sinks in, Madarame mocks the council for being so slow to notice their falling numbers. An enraged Dogoskara lunges forward with murderous intent, but Madarame remains unfazed, questioning if the dragon-like master really has the luxury to focus on a personal vendetta right now. Suddenly, a forced teleportation magic engulfs the room as Madarame reveals his true master plan. This entire confrontation was a massive diversion designed to drain their resources and lure them away from their territories, leaving their unguarded dungeons to be conquered by adventurers at this very second. The weight of the situation crushes the remaining council members as Yulin and Dogoskara stand paralyzed by the sudden shift in power. The once mighty masters are now forced to face a reality where their absolute authority has been completely dismantled in a matter of minutes, leaving them vulnerable and exposed. Instead of pleading for mercy, Yulin breaks into a fit of hysterical laughter, acknowledging that Madarame has successfully orchestrated the total collapse of the Grand Eight single-handedly. Even in her defeat, she leaves him with a chilling warning, claiming that his victory is only temporary and that his arrogance will eventually lead to his downfall when a stronger opponent appears. Madarame remains completely unfazed by the threats, casually shifting his focus to Megwire to demand an immediate decision regarding the penalty points. He gives the council a choice between paying up or facing the consequences, treating the legendary masters like nothing more than common debtors in his casino. Sensing the depth of the trap, Sylvana agrees to pay the points, but reveals she had been hiding an invisible monster ready to strike at any moment. However, she hesitates to order an attack because she finally realizes that the person standing before them might not even be Madarame's physical body, questioning if they have been talking to a ghost this entire time. Madarame smirks at her sharp intuition and finally reveals his ultimate bluff, explaining how he used color-changing slimes to manipulate the global ranking board and fake his own status. He openly admits that his true body is nowhere near the Grand Hall, leaving Sylvana fuming at the realization that she has been completely outplayed by a master swindler. With a final farewell, the puppet body collapses into a lifeless heap, leaving the council in a state of absolute ruin and silence. Meanwhile, the outside world descends into total chaos as news breaks that 4 of the great dungeons have been cleared simultaneously by the legendary heroes, signaling the official end of the Grand Eight's era and the start of a new world order. The public is left reeling from the news of 4 top-tier dungeons falling simultaneously, wondering what on earth is happening to the global balance of power. Back in his private chambers, Takashi relaxes as Kerama praises his master's genius, confirming that while the legendary heroes physically cleared the dungeons, it was Takashi who masterfully orchestrated the entire collapse from the shadows. This calculated move hasn't just cleared the board, it has officially catapulted Takashi into the ranks of the Grand Eight, placing him at the very peak of the dungeon hierarchy. However, Takashi remains stoic, fully aware of the cold cycle of power where every new ruler is eventually destined to be hunted by someone stronger, realizing that the very heroes he used might one day come for his head. This premonition immediately takes shape at the entrance of the recently conquered Black Dragon dungeon, where the hero Sigurd ignores the cheers of the crowd and reporters. He has no intention of resting on his laurels, already demanding the location of his next target with a cold, singular focus on total conquest. The 4 legendary heroes have reached a silent consensus on their next objective, setting their sights directly on the source of the recent global upheaval. With the Grand Eight dismantled, the hunt is officially on, and the ultimate target for these world-class warriors is now confirmed to be Takashi's casino dungeon.